Well, I'm very excited to be here today with Rebecca Adelman from Memphis, Tennessee. Rebecca has founded her law firm a good 22 years ago. So we've got lots of experience that we're going to be able to dive into her insights. And her firm is adelmanfirm.com. But I'd love for you to introduce yourself, Rebecca. Welcome.
Thank you, Yoon. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. As I was sharing with you before we started this recording, I really enjoy and am very inspired when I meet women like yourself who are just creators and leaders. So anyway, I thank you for sharing this space with me. So I'm Rebecca Adelman. I have a law firm here in Memphis, Tennessee. I hail originally from Michigan, beautiful state of Michigan. I like to say that I'm a small firm with a big firm footprint, because that's really kind of how we are, a very client-centric model of practice. And then I have some other related enterprises we may talk about, but yeah, so I've been in practice for almost 35 years as a lawyer. And just, have some niches in my practice. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
So when you started your firm, well, first of all, what's your practice area?
Yeah, so my practice area, sort of at the 10,000-foot view, would be insurance defense or defense work. So I really show up only on the defense side. I defend businesses. I defend healthcare systems. I have, if we zoom in a little more from the 10,000 feet to about 5,000 feet, I have expertise in healthcare. So represent hospital systems, medical groups, long-term care communities, any provider group in the healthcare system. And then if we zoom in even a little more, I have a real niche practice in senior living. So I've developed a thought leadership around and an expertise around senior care. So nursing homes, assisted living, rehabilitation, post-acute long-term care. So I represent those providers, do risk management with those providers, some claims management, education, training, corporate compliance. So that's sort of how my practice is. And then, like every entrepreneur, I have all sorts of other parts of my practice as well that I do business litigation. I focus on, helping small businesses incorporate and build their businesses. I do work on premises liability. I have another 30% of my practice that's focused on a whole variety of a very diverse portfolio.
Oh, wow. So how did you land on wanting to focus on defense and on your niche with the healthcare systems?
Great question. I welcome that. So, as a young lawyer, which I can kind of think back to that time. But anyway, as a young lawyer moving to Memphis and practicing law, I took a fantastic position. I got offered a great position. And that law firm and the founders of that law firm, still my mentors today. And that was their area of practice. So I sort of, was hired into that practice and then developed a lot of interest in it, and then started to develop expertise and hone my skill sets. And so that's how I got into that part of the practice. And when I was in that firm, I started to develop, a real passion around healthcare. And then from healthcare came my journey into senior living. So it was a real progression of just getting more fine-tuned with my practices, more fine-tuned with my expertise, and all at the same time, just again, building the larger enterprises around my thought leadership.
Wow. I love that. And that's such a unique niche. So, I love the idea. Now, as far as our listeners, my heart is to help inspire other entrepreneurs, other law firm owners. And I love that you identify as an entrepreneur too, because I saw that on your LinkedIn profile. When you think about your journey Rebecca, what would you say were some key inflection points that helped really move the needle as far as the growth of your firm?
My inflection points. What a what a thought-provoking question, Yun. I think just relocating here, being from Michigan and coming down, well, probably one of the key inflection points was coming down to Memphis, never having been into this area, the Southeast or the South of the United States, and moving from, moving from the North. I was in law school in Colorado and I came here and just, I think early on, I recognized that I wanted to have my own practice and that it may not have been materializing early on in my first few years, but having come down here, the inflection point being really transitioning to an entire new culture and a new environment. One where there were not a lot of women practicing law, period, let alone women trial lawyers. So that really shaped my decision to ultimately go out on my own. I felt the people upon whose shoulders I stood were incredible leaders and great lawyers, but I really felt like I had sort of some visions and some ideas to bring to the world and, things like that. And I needed to sort of develop my own resources and my own kind of build my brand before building your brand was like a thing. You know what I mean? And so that was important. That was probably one just inflection. It's just relocating and starting brand new somewhere in a culture I was not familiar with in an environment. And probably the next biggest inflection point was going out on my own, becoming a parent. The same year I went on my own, I became a parent. I'm a sole parent of a wonderful young man. And so then building my practice and sort of integrating my, having a really holistic view of my practice. How can I, grow a practice and also grow a human being, right? So, and grow myself as a mother and an entrepreneur and a communitarian. So that whole sort of, sort of all those conditions at work when I opened my own firm, had a child, and sort of merged this, my life into itself, integrated my life. That was probably another one. And then I think if we were doing it in threes, my next real inflection point was probably the moment, and I don't know exactly when it is, probably in my early 50s, late 40s, maybe somewhere in there, was when I realized that, like the real knowing that, that I would always be okay. Like like fearlessness manifesting. How about that? That's probably so. And with this sort of sense of fearlessness in my life, it gave me a lot of freedom, more creative freedom. I built some more businesses around my enterprise. And so I think those would be kind of the key inflection points. I'm in that third point right now, which is really fun. I'm having a good time there. Yeah.
So now when you say you built some other businesses around your enterprise, can you tell us a real quick summary on what other businesses that you built?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So, everyone, I think as entrepreneurs, we have our core businesses, right? So my core business is the law firm, but from the law firm, I've created a claims management and risk management solutions company that also focuses on senior living, trying to problem solve to risk, to losses, to litigation. So that is one of the enterprises, Adelman Claims Management. And the other enterprise is more recent, yet it's sort of a long time in coming, but is called GuidePath, which is a national certification program for senior living community. So you can go through a certification program to demonstrate a certain level of excellence in your in senior living. And it's a amazing the timing of it has really been great. And it's really designed to focus on residents, their families, and our community, our really great community administrators and caregivers to help engage around a lot of the unknowns and uncertainties and expectations around transitions of care. So if you know anyone, or maybe you yourself even have had a loved one transition into a assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility or somewhere away from the home that they're used to into a care environment, it brings with it a lot of emotions and needs and expectations and a lot of need for education and training. And that's what the program does. So I just rolled that out. I'm coming out of a pilot and just took the program to the marketplace. So they're all in some ways, all the enterprises are, the ventures, they're connected, they're connected in some way. But I think the freedom and feeling, confident enough to just find problems and solve to them, right? Without regard to, is it going to be wildly successful or not, but rather just focus on solutions has really been a gift to my business life.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you've got a lot of energy, Rebecca, to have how you divide your time.
Wait, hold on a minute.
Your brain power to be able to birth the vision and execute and just be able to oversee the growth of multiple business centers, revenue centers that are serving. I love how you serve the same market, and you're basically becoming a one-stop shop for the senior living centers and the healthcare systems, and just seeing the need. Mm-hmm. So that's so interesting how you're balancing, where some entrepreneurs they can see the need, but they feel so disfocused because, it could be a good thing because you're seeing the opportunity, but it could also be maybe your Achilles heel, because if it's becoming something that feels like chasing a shiny object syndrome. But
interesting.
You've really nailed it as far as balancing that and getting focused and actually launching those multiple revenue centers and business brands. So that's a major undertaking.
Well, I appreciate that. It takes a village of people. I mean, I have amazing visionary, team members, people that I work with, that I entrust with the vision. And, I like to always say it just, to entrepreneurs out there too, who might find themselves, in a lane they can't get out of, or they want to on-ramp somewhere else. It's just, small keys open big doors. You know what I mean? It's just doing a little bit to move yourself into the direction of growth is really to me the of the pathway, the successful way to get there.
So now I know you're a woman-owned firm for your law firm. Are you also, does that spill over to your other business, your business, your
all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about, there's certainly benefits that people know about being a woman-owned law firm. Are there challenges, Rebecca, on being a woman-owned law firm?
Are there challenges? Yeah, sure. Yeah, there are actually. I think that, like many women who are sort of, I wrote a piece once, Yoon, that was called, I'll send it to you, called Work-Life Being. And it was my take on sort of the having it all, work-life balance, when that was sort of a thing. This is several years ago, where everyone was talking about balance. And my take on all that was that, that balance is an illusion. There's just no way to have balance. It really is how you respond to being off balance that defines kind of how, your life trajectory. It's really the off balance that's the most important part of of managing and, living a fulfilling life. And so I coined that term work-life being, like just be where you are, just if you're working on if we're interviewing and we're working together, I am 100% here, being here. Like that's all this is what's most important to me is what's in my now right here. And when I'm not here, I'm doing something else or I'm thinking something else. And so I'll be there. And I'm not there now, in other words, like I'm not even thinking ahead of what I've got to do or the hundreds of emails, or I'm being with you. Just like when I have to go to my son plays college basketball. So I have to go to the game tonight. So I will be there when I'm there. That's the work life being.
Yeah.
And I think that, the question about, how do you balance it all, or how do you, I think you don't, you really don't. You just you just increasing your own self-awareness, your own self-care to pay attention and be able to respond when you're off balance. I think that's the ticket. So in any one of these enterprises, at any given time, there's a fire for sure. And I guess my challenge is, how do I get to the fire? How do I know what the fire is? And I think as a woman, we have a tendency to be responsible for most of the fires. And I think that, in addition to some of the obvious challenges I faced, bias, aggression, microaggression, just ignorance, lack of opportunity, disparity, those conditions that are at work as we sit here today and talk still. And I think those are many of my challenges. Not many setbacks as a result of them, though. Instead, like recognizing the challenge, being with the challenge, and then navigating my way through it. I think that's it. And just being a parent, and I'm I'm a bit of a type A, and I want to do things well, right?
Yeah.
So I've had to give myself a lot of, ease up on myself some, as I've gathered the years, I ease up myself a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I probably face many of the same challenges other women face in industries that are primarily male dominated. And I think I've taken that opportunity to use it to my advantage and to find all the opportunities I could in being a woman, right?
Right.
I like to tell, of course, I'm mentoring other women in my office, younger women, as we sort of raise the next generation. And I tell them, where it used to be, people would say, get a seat at the table, as a woman, just make sure you've got your seat at the table. My philosophy, even when I was a young entrepreneur, was just, I have my own table.
That's right.
I have my own table. I'm not going to have you at someone else's table. We should set our own tables.
Set your own table.
Right?
Change make it a paradigm shift there.
You know what I mean? Like it's just, I don't need to go to anybody's table.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
That's
so
that's
wonderful.
fun, right? Yeah.
So we're just in the same conversation of, the multiple businesses that you have. What's working in recent years? What's working the best for you as far as client acquisition? That's a big topic for our listeners. Always, trying to be the rainmaker, and marketing out there is shifting all the time. So talk to us about what's working.
Just a great question, and a question we will explore later, you and me, because I'd love to get your feedback on it. So what's really worked for me is, if you go and sort of check me out, I think what's worked for me is creating really unique content and really unique value adds. So for example, in senior living, I used to write an article every month for 14 years. I would never missed one, called the Nursing and Assisted Living Professional. It was just like a little newsletter, and I would mail it out to the clients. This was before people were emailing everything, right?
Yeah.
And this year, well, 2023, I decided that I wanted to create a webinar series instead. So I called it the Senior Living Empower Hour.
Oh,
And so I planned out a month of content, free, complimentary,
yeah.
to anyone who wants to be there in the senior living world. And I think with my expertise and, just the way that I approach all the stakeholders in the ecosystem where I hang out in the business ecosystem, that's become very successful. So it's something different, in other words. I do my best to partner also with very purposeful organizations. It's a very important part of my brand, is my corporate social responsibility. And for a firm my size, and it's very unique. So for example, I have several organizations, nonprofits that I partner with that are, and they're all some type of their purpose, their beneficial purpose all relates to either helping impoverished women, help women move from, for example, sex trafficking into, gainful employment and housing. So we've got an array of organizations that I partner with in order to highlight and promote them. And that kind of partnership, and I think, has really helped our clients and potential new clients really understand the level of integrity that they have with our firm. Like, because, here's the bottom line. If people work with me, they know I know what to do. I know how to be a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 3 decades. I'm probably one of the best lawyers they'll ever meet, but that's just what I do.
Yeah.
I think we live in a world now where they want to know who you are. Like, who are you?
Absolutely.
Where it's trust and it's integrity and it's transparency and it's, who's your friend group, right? And who's your corporate friend group? And if you look at mine, they're important, purposeful organizations, right? So I think that's been how I've approached my brand, like building a brand that's based on the who I am versus what I do. I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And that transcends, tactics and what people are doing, is being able to see into who you are because you're being intentional about that. So I mean, you gave such great wisdom here today, some value bombs for our listeners. Well, one, it was so loud and clear. 14 years that you were consistent. And that's the hardest part of actually doing the work.
That's a great point, Yoon. Wow.
I mean, Rebecca, 14 years every week, for you to write that article, that newsletter, where companies, entrepreneurs, just people in general, they'll try something and they might have a 2-week attention span, maybe a 90-day attention span. And I'd say on the higher level, some people might have a 6-month attention span. If they commit to something for 6 months and decide, wow, we really haven't seen fruit from that yet. Well, it takes time. You need to be consistent, because it also takes time to really get into the groove of learning.
It's so true.
Do things correctly, the nuances, get your technique down and to be able to get traction. So one, you've been consistent for 14 years. The other thing that I thought was great was that you went out of your comfort zone. Might not have been your comfort zone, but I think for a lot of people I talk to, doing webinars is out of their comfort zone. And that you went out and did that, something new, something different. And the other piece too is when you were talking about your corporate, responsibility of teaming up with other nonprofits that mean a lot to you. I mean, action speaks louder than words, and took the action to team up and partner with causes that you care about. So that it does take time. It's not a push button, click this,
No.
and now you're going to be, an instant lead acquisition, let's say.
Yeah.
But you actually took the time and put in the work, the discipline. So there's a lot that you just shared, a lot of value bombs, and I appreciate you sharing.
Oh, that's so affirming. Thank you so much. That's so affirming. I appreciate that. I guess when I think about client acquisition, or I think about, I think about relationships is what I think about. It takes time to cultivate relationships.
It does.
But if you just do a little bit, again, it's just small keys opening big doors. It's just do a little bit. And that little bit just adds up, like 1% better or whatever it might be, just a little bit every day, I think has been my plan.
And who you are. That was the fourth thing I didn't get to reiterate. That's a huge value bomb. And it's funny because believe it or not, I work with a number of clients over the years who are very shy about doing their online marketing. And they don't even want to put their photo on the email, let's say, the email campaigns that we do for them, or social media posts. And I always liken it. And I think it maybe stems from they don't feel good about how they look, or I don't know. They might feel like they're not at the right weight yet. And I've always had to coax them on, look, if you had to show up to a in-person networking event, you're not going to show up with a paper bag over your head. Just because you feel shy doing videos and you don't want to put your face out there, your face is who you are. I mean, this is not, we're not in business to win some kind of modeling competition.
Right.
It's just knowing you as a person.
Although you'd win.
Oh gosh.
Just so you know.
Well, and
you would win.
It's my point is, and to what you were saying of being authentic, really being intentional, letting people know who you are as a person. And that is, trust is, I think the speed of trust is how is changing the way we do business today. And the first part of trust is letting people in to know who you are. And it does work better if you put your face out there so you can see people eye to eye. Video is even better, like you're doing with webinars, and just learning how to just let go and present who you are.
But I'll tell you something, so you were asking about challenges as a woman business owner, as a woman law firm. One of the challenges I think we all face as women is letting, having the who we are versus what we do be the lead, right? It requires us to know who we are.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So there's some work and some consistency that has to go into figuring out and exploring who you are. I think that's really, if you continue to unpack that, if I were in the branding world or media world and I was trying to help, even with the young lawyers here in my office, I've got this questionnaire I have them fill out for their professional development and networking and business building. I want to teach them how to get clients. You know what I mean? They don't teach you that in law school. And in the questionnaire, I asked them to, share how they define themselves, who they are. I mean, they have to know that first. Yeah. And then when we know that, and we don't always know it, I mean, that's life, that's a lifelong process. But so long as we can get a glimpse into who we are, I think that's important. And if we know that that's going to be part of how we are going to grow our businesses and our impact, which is really what it's all about, right? What kind of impact can we have? Positive impact. If we know that what we're doing is leading to that, to me, it gives me even more motivation, it's sort of, I'm motivated anyway to try and live in a place of self-awareness, but it even motivates me even more continue to explore who I am so I can get it out there and be even more creative and maybe attract even more clients, ones that I wouldn't even have expected just because I'm doing the work. And I think that's really important. And it's a hard lesson to teach, for example, the younger lawyers or where life is really like immediate and, gratification and things are just so fast. It's just, you gotta slow it down and,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
appreciate the journey, it's a journey.
It is.
Mhm.
And that's a huge lesson for people to chew on. And for myself to continue to make sure I live out. And it's really about your identity. It's not
Mhm.
what you do. It's
Mhm.
who you are is not what you do. And how do you
Mhm.
let people feel like they've gotten to know you as a
Mhm.
person? And I think,
Mhm.
it's probably not a morbid, but it's I went to a funeral. So
Mhm.
I don't want to bring a damper to the conversation, but it reinforced the same lesson, Rebecca,
Mhm.
that this particular funeral was different because I was so aware. It just jumped out at me. I didn't expect that everybody who went and spoke about the person who passed away, you normally kind of expect how they impacted your life. And even his children, the stories they told about their dad had
Mhm.
really nothing to do with who he was as a person. They
Mhm.
talked about what he did. And
Mhm.
I felt like I walked away as that, like it was just a resume,
Mhm. Oh,
really
wow.
reinforced
Interesting.
his business accolades, his accomplishments as an athlete. And I just thought, wow, I was listening the whole time. I was listening for someone to share,
Mhm. Mhm.
like, who was he as a person, and
Right.
what were meaningful
Interesting.
moments? What did he believe in? What did he care about? What was he
Yeah.
like? What was his personality? And
Mhm.
so anyway, I mean, we could talk about this forever.
Well, it's a really,
But
I tell you something, to me, what a great marketing idea. I'm going to actually sit down and think about it. Like, I have a memory. Well, I'll finish that thought. Like, what
yeah,
do you want? What would you want someone to say if they're memorializing you? You know what I mean? And celebrating you. And I remember when my kid was young and he went to a Montessori school and
mhm,
they had career day. So, you bring your parents in, a career or whatever, someone in your life who's got a career and you bring them in. So my son brought me in, I was going to be there and all the parents, I sat and watched and, my dad's a fireman. Here's what he does. And, da, 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 and describing, his job and this, that, and the other. My son, and I'll never forget this, my son introduced me and he said, "Hi, this is my mom." And the teacher said, "What does she do?" And my son said, "Well, she cooks the best macaroni and cheese ever. And she reads to me every single night. And she and I both, take care of the dog.
mhm.
And and he was just like going through all these qualities that he appreciated about me.
How sweet.
And I was just, I mean, of course, I was crying by then. And the teacher was kind of looking perplexed. And she said to him, "Well, what does she do though?" And
Yeah,
he said, "Well, I just told you." And it dawned on the teacher that he was telling her, well, who I was, not what I did.
right.
And then my son said, "You mean what's her job?" And she said, "Oh, she's a lawyer." And it occurred to me then that I must be doing something right. If when someone asks my son about me, he describes who I am, like who I am, what I bring to him, right, as a person,
Right.
versus like my mom's a lawyer, she's this, she's that. I just thought that was just sort of like the highlight of my parenting life. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I love that.
Yeah. But to
That
your
is so
point too,
sweet.
I'd
Yeah.
like my son to say, you know, here's what made my mom laugh. Here's what, you know, when he's memorializing me. I think that's an important, you know, doing a retrospective never hurts,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And it does. I mean, because you want to show up, and it's so important to do it for yourself anyway.
Yeah.
But it also shows up in how you present yourself in your business. Anyway, I have to wrap this up because I promised you this was going to be done 10 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh, it was
I've
so, I
been
could
so
talk to you.
absorbed into
You
our
and I
conversation.
could talk to you forever. What a fun afternoon. I so appreciate the time. I look forward to learning more about what you do and helping me change the world. That's what I'm thinking about. So,
Oh, I love that. Okay. So for folks who would like to learn more about you, your firm, what you do, it's adelmanfirm.com, Adelman, adelmanfirm.com. And do you have any other places that you'd like to send people to go
oh,
to?
they could check out my new company is GuidePath, guidepathlLC.com. I think they'd love to see sort of the solutions we're bringing to that population, the seniors. So,
Great. Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us for this conversation with Rebecca Adelman. It has been a ton of fun just getting to know you and ebbing and flowing the way our conversation went. So,
It's wonderful.
all right. Thanks everybody. That's it for
Thank
today.
you, Yoon.